Hello everyone, my name is David Luchford and welcome to lesson 38 of my Ancient Greek course. In today's lesson we are going to be learning about the verb to be in the present tense. In particular, we're going to be learning about it in the present indicative. In English, the verb to be in the present indicative conjugates as follows. I am, you are, he, she, it is, we are, you plural are, and they are. So we're going to be learning about how those different forms would look in ancient Greek. And we're going to learn about how the verb to be is used in ancient Greek. You can see I've put the word eİmι in brackets here. That's because eİmι is the first person singular present indicative form of the verb to be in ancient Greek. So eİmι means I am. And we shall look at how you would say the other forms in ancient Greek in just a moment. But for now, let's take a look at my virtual sets of shelves. Because if we do that, we shall see that in the past 2 weeks, Susie has kindly bought me 5 virtual amphorae. Thank you very much for that, Susie. I really appreciate the support. In addition, Roller52 has continued to support my channel by buying me another 3 virtual amphorae. So thank you very much for that, Roller52. I really appreciate it. And finally, Jake Larson has continued to support my channel by buying me another 10 virtual amphorae. What a staggering quantity of virtual amphorae. Thank you very much, Jake. And you will notice, ladies and gentlemen, that Jake's amphorae are a curious colour. That is because he asked for his amphorae to be wine dark or wine faced. For those of you that don't know, this is a term that is used by Homer, most notably to describe the sea. The term in Greek is oinops. That is the nominative singular form of the adjective, and then it declines like a 3a noun would. It's a type of adjective we haven't met yet, but it would use the same endings as those of a 3a noun, and it has an oblique stem in the same way that a 3a noun does. The oblique stem is oinop. Now, this term oinops is a combination of oinos, meaning wine, and ops, meaning face. So literally, oinops means wine-faced, and Homer uses it to describe the sea. He puts it with the word pontos, which is a word we haven't met yet, but it means sea. So in Homer, you can see oinops pontos, meaning literally the wine-faced sea. And Jake says that he has always puzzled at the term wine-faced. And Jake, that is very understandable, as scholars are still uncertain and still argue about what this term means exactly. We know it means wine-faced, literally, right, from oinos and ops. However, we're not sure what Homer means by it. He describes the sea as wine-faced. And there are different theories about it. In particular, I know that some scholars have suggested that wine would have been a bluish colour in ancient Greece due to the alkaline water used in it. So perhaps Homer was calling it wine-faced in that it has a wine-like appearance because wine was bluish. Another proposal has been that wine was in fact a similar colour to the colour that it is today, you know, like this dark reddish colour, and that Homer was using it to describe how the sea looks at a certain time of day. You know, near the end of the day, the sea could apparently look a reddish colour. That's an alternative proposal. And some other scholars think that the term isn't referring to the colour of the sea, but rather to some other quality of the sea. Perhaps it's something more metaphorical. Anyway, we don't know what this term wine-faced means. It's been translated as wine dark historically. That's because of an ancient lexicographer who glosses the term as meaning dark. However, it's not certain that it did mean dark. It's not certain that it even referred to the colour of something. And as a fun fact, Homer also uses the adjective oinops to describe oxen. Okay, so oxen are apparently also wine-faced, or wine dark if we want to go with the traditional translation. So that's why I have rendered Jake's amphorae as the same colour as our wine is, in effect, because it seems to me that the colour of oxen is closer to the colour of our wine than it is to blue. Oxen aren't very blue, okay, so I've understood the term as meaning wine-coloured in some sense, but I don't actually have a firm opinion on the meaning of oinops, okay? I haven't looked into it enough. But if you know about oinops, please do share what you know in the comments below, okay? Share your ideas, share your theories. But Jake, I've made your amphorae wine-coloured, even though I'm not certain that Homer used the adjective to mean wine-coloured. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you will see that I have left a gap on this shelf. That's because I wanted to keep all of Jake's amphorae together. And thus, we have this space here. I need to fill it with something. I'm thinking of filling it with something appropriate to the season. Okay, so a festive item, maybe a mini Christmas tree or something. So if you have a suggestion for what I should put on this shelf, please do add it in the comments below as well. But for now, let me say thank you very much to everyone who has supported my channel in the past 2 weeks. And thank you very much to everyone who has supported my channel in the past also. I now have this wonderful collection of virtual amphorae. And I should say, I also greatly appreciate all of the comments, all of the likes, and all of the subscriptions. So please do be sure to like the video, to subscribe, and to leave a comment if you have anything to say about it. And if you would like to add a virtual amphora or virtual amphorae to my virtual shelves, you can do so at the link in the description below. But for now, let's talk about the verb to be. As in many languages, the verb to be is irregular in Greek. Now, what do I mean when I say that it's irregular in many languages? Well, let's take English as an example. A regular verb in English conjugates something like the following. We can take the verb to walk as an example. I walk, you singular walk, he, she, or it walks, we walk, you plural walk, they walk. So a regular verb in English simply adds s to the third person singular form. But the verb to be in English is irregular because we don't simply add s to the third person singular form. Because if we think about how it looks in English, it looks as follows. I am, you singular are, he, she, it is, we are, you plural are, they are. So you can see the first person singular form uses the word am, the second person singular form uses the word are, the third person singular form uses the word is, and the other three forms use the word are. So there's this alternation between am, is, and are, according to who is doing the action. So unlike with a regular verb, we don't just add s to the third person singular form, we have more drastic and unpredictable changes that non-native speakers of English just have to learn. Now, the verb to be in ancient Greek is similarly irregular, in that there are drastic and unpredictable changes in its forms. So we do have to learn the verb to be separately, because it's an irregular verb. Let's have a look at how the verb to be conjugates in the present indicative in ancient Greek. The first person singular form is εἰμι, meaning I am. The second person singular form is a, meaning you singular are. The third person singular form is estin, or without movable nu, esti, meaning he, she, or it is. The first person plural form is esmen, meaning we are. The second person plural form is este, meaning you plural are. And finally, the third person plural form is eisin, or without the movable nu, ac, meaning they are. So here are the 6 forms of the verb to be in the present indicative in ancient Greek. Now, it does approximate a me verb in that we've learned how didormi, the verb to give, conjugates in the present indicative active. It goes didormi, didors, didorsin, didomen, didoter, didowasin. So there are some commonalities there. You've got me as the ending here, as in didormi, but then didors is very different from this second person singular form, which is just the diphthong a. Then with didormi, we have didorsin. Here we have estin, which is a bit similar. Then we have didomen. Here we have esmen, so men is still there. Then with didormi, we have didoter. Here we have ester. So once again, quite similar. We've got the te there. And then with didormi, we have didowasin. Here we have asin. So the ending sin is there as well. So there are some commonalities with a me verb like didormi. But there are also unpredictable changes in that some forms use the diphthong a at the start. In fact, the second person singular just is the diphthong a, whereas others use s. That is epsilon, sigma, as you see in estin, esmen, ester. So we have to learn these forms individually. With that said, please do note down the conjugation of eİmι, that is the verb to be, in the present indicative. Please pause the video and note it down. Okay, now that we know how the verb to be looks in the present tense in ancient Greek, let's now learn about how it is used. The verb to be can be used with nouns. For example, we could see the sentence Hoi andres eisi nautai. This says, the men are sailors. So, this is the third person plural form of the verb to be. We've got ac here because the men are the subject, so we need a third person plural verb. And you will notice nautai, the noun that is following the verb to be, is also nominative plural, like the men are nominative plural. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, with the verb to be, both the thing that goes before it and the thing that goes after it go in the nominative case. So if you say, the woman is a prophet, both the word the woman and the word prophet go in the nominative case. And that's because with the verb to be, nobody is doing anything to anyone. You're just describing one and the same person or one and the same thing. You're not saying that somebody is doing something to someone. There's no object. Rather, what you have with the verb to be is technically called the complement. The complement is the thing that follows the verb to be in English. So in this sentence here, the men are sailors, nautai is the complement. The complement is what completes the verb to be. It's the thing that follows the verb to be in English. So if you said, the woman is beautiful, beautiful there is the complement. If you said, the bridge is long, the word long there is the complement. If you said, the man is a writer, writer there is the complement. The thing that follows the verb to be in English is the complement. One key exception to this is if you say there is or there are. For example, there is a duck on the farm. There, the word duck is actually the subject. So if you say there is or there are, in those instances, the thing that follows the verb to be is the subject. But in the other cases, the thing that follows the verb to be is what we call the complement. Now, a Greek sentence that uses the verb to be need not be in the English word order like this. You could have hoi andres nautai and then put eisin at the end. And yet, nautai would still be the complement because it's the thing that completes the verb to be. It's the thing that follows the verb to be in English. And in our translation, it will follow the verb to be, even if it doesn't necessarily follow the verb to be in the Greek word order. And the complement in Greek will not have the definite article before it. So that's one way you can tell what is the subject and what is the complement. So even if this sentence was in a different order, it would mean the men are sailors. Now, as I was saying, both the subject of the verb to be and the complement go in the nominative case. Okay? Everything's in the nominative with the verb to be, because nobody's doing anything to anybody else. So that's our first example of the verb to be being used with a noun. In other words, the verb to be having a noun as its complement. So, hoi andres eisi nautai means the men are sailors. Let's look at a second example, iatros eimi. Eimi is the first person singular form of the verb to be in the present indicative, so it means I am, and iatros means doctor, and it's in the nominative since, with the verb to be, everything goes in the nominative. The complement of the verb to be here is iatros, and so this means I am a doctor. Now, the second use of the verb to be is as follows. The verb to be can also be used with adjectives. You might say, for example, Herguner esti kaler, meaning the woman is beautiful. Now here, if you use an adjective with the verb to be, the principle of agreement still applies. So kaler here is feminine nominative singular because Herguner is feminine nominative singular. And because we've got the verb to be, both of these need to be in the nominative. Both the subject, Herguner, and the complement, kaler, are in the nominative case. So, Herguner esti kaler means the woman is beautiful. A second example is sophoi esmen. Esmen means we are. It's the first person plural form of the verb to be in the present indicative. And sophoi means wise. Here, it's masculine nominative plural, and it needs to be nominative plural because the subject is plural and the verb to be requires everything to be in the nominative, since nobody is doing anything to anyone else. Now you might think, does it need to be masculine? And the answer there is no, because we don't explicitly have a subject stated. If you're speaking in the first person in ancient Greek, what determines the gender of an adjective going with the verb to be, in that case, is the gender of the subject's name, which, if you're a woman, will be feminine, and if you're a man, will be masculine, grammatically. So here, because it's masculine nominative plural, this means the subject is either a group of men or it's a mixed group of both men and women. Whereas if it were an exclusively female subject, say that this were a group of women, then you would instead say esmen sophai with the feminine nominative plural ending. Okay, so the principle of agreement applies even if you don't have the subject explicitly stated. Anyway, sophoi esmen, in any case, would mean we are wise. I was just talking about the possibility of this being feminine if you had an exclusively female subject. That is, a group of women, for example. To illustrate this further, if you want to say I am wise in ancient Greek and you're a man, you would say sophos eimi or εἰμι sopos. Whereas if you're a woman and you want to say that, it would be soper εἰμι or εἰμι soper. Anyway, so far we've learned that the verb to be can be used with nouns. It can also be used with adjectives. Thirdly, the verb to be can be used with a noun and an adjective together. For example, you might see the sentence "Ho aner esti stratiotes iskyros," meaning the man is a strong soldier. So there, the complement is an adjective with a noun. So the complement can be both a noun and an adjective working together as one unit. So this would mean the man is a strong soldier. Let's now look at a fourth and final use of the verb to be. The verb to be can be put at the start of a sentence to mean there is or there are. It can be used to affirm the existence of something. And there won't be a separate word for there in Greek in this instance. You just put the appropriate form of the verb to be, that is either estin or eīsin, at the start of the sentence. Or at the start of the clause. Please do note that this rule applies if estin or eīsin appears at the start of the clause. It need not appear at the start of the entire sentence. So for example, if you see estin or eīsin following a comma or following the dot, which is equivalent to a semicolon or colon in ancient Greek, then you should translate it as there is or there are. So if you see estin or eīsin at the start of a sentence or at the start of a clause, translate them as there is and there are, respectively. So if you said, for example, estin angelos en dei oikiai, this would mean there is a messenger in the house. Whereas if you said angelos estin en dei oikiai, it would be a messenger is in the house. But because estin is at the start, it means there is a messenger in the house. So estin and eīsin can appear at the start of a sentence to mean there is and there are, respectively. So this sentence means there is a messenger in the house. And when estin and eīsin are being used like this, the thing that follows them is actually the subject rather than the complement. So here, for example, angelos is the subject. Finally, one other note about the verb to be, before we do some practice with it, is that the verb to be is sometimes omitted in Greek. For example, you might see the sentence herguner kaler. This literally says, the woman beautiful. And we don't have any verb. That's because the verb to be has been omitted. It has been left out. And therefore, we have to understand or supply the word esti here, meaning is. Really, this should be herguner esti kaler, meaning the woman is beautiful. But esti has been left out. So we would translate this as the woman is beautiful, even though there is no verb there, because we understand or supply the verb to be since it's been omitted from the Greek sentence. Now this tends to happen more frequently with the particular forms estin and eīsin, the third person forms of the verb to be in the present indicative, and in particular it happens a lot with proverbs, that is, sayings. The verb to be is also omitted quite a lot in inscriptions. Okay, having explained all of that, here is exercise 1, which asks you to translate these 8 sentences into English. Each of these sentences uses a present indicative form of the verb to be, and the complement will either be a noun, an adjective, or a noun with an adjective. Or the verb to be, if it appears at the start, will be meaning there is or there are, depending on the form of the verb to be used. And the verb to be has actually been omitted from one of these sentences, so do look out for that too. I have glossed some unfamiliar terms in the word bank, including the adjective axios. Axios means worthy of or deserving, and it takes the genitive. Okay, so the thing that somebody is worthy of goes in the genitive next to it. Please now pause the video and translate these sentences into English. Okay, let's now go through the answers. Number 1 is alhopulux estimoros. You should have translated this one as, but the guard is foolish, or but the guard is stupid. We know that it means this because al means but. The last alpha has been elided in response to the next word being a vowel. And then we have hopulux. Hopulux is the guard in the nominative singular. Pulux is a 3a noun that we've met before. Esti means is. It's the third person singular present indicative form of the verb to be. And moros is the masculine nominative singular form of the adjective moros, meaning stupid or foolish. So it was, but the guard is foolish or stupid. Number 2 is idou eisin anthropoientei nesoi. You should have translated this one as, look, there are people on the island, or there are men on the island. We know that it means this because idou is look, eisin here is beginning its clause, and therefore it means there are rather than they are. Then we have anthropoi in the nominative plural, so they're the subject of the verb to be here. They are what we're being told there are on the island, namely people or men. So, look, there are men on the island. Nesos, although it's a 2a noun, is feminine, in case you were wondering. So that's why we have the feminine dative singular definite article rather than the masculine dative singular definite article. Number 3 is haites gunaikos oprues eisikalai. You should have translated this one as, the woman's eyebrows are beautiful. We know that it means this because hai is going with oprues. So these are the eyebrows in the nominative plural. Here we have the sandwich construction being used to deploy a genitive phrase, tes gunaikos. So these are in particular the eyebrows of the woman, or in other words, the woman's eyebrows. Ac means they are, and since hai or prues are in the nominative plural, the eyebrows are the subject of the verb to be. So the woman's eyebrows are beautiful or fine. Number 4 is ho despotes tus doulos eipoiei. Ho un despotes estin anthropos agathos. You should have translated this one as, the master treats the slaves well. Therefore, the master is a good man. We know that it means this because the master is in the nominative singular, eipoiei was in the word bank, and it means to treat well or to benefit. And it comes from poieor, the verb to do or to make, and eu is a Greek adverb meaning well. So literally, eipoiei means to do well, as in to do someone well, or to benefit them, in other words, or to treat them well, we would say in English. So, the master benefits or treats well tus doulos, the slaves, we could say his slaves. Then we're told, therefore, un means therefore, or so, the master is an anthropos agathos, a good man or a good person. Agathos was also in the word bank. Number 5 is Hodeaner estin axios thanatou, poneius gar estin. You should have translated this one as, but the man deserves death, for he is a murderer. Or more literally, the man is worthy of death, for he is a murderer. Or the man is deserving of death, for he is a murderer. Now, we know that it means this because the man is in the nominative singular, and in the middle of ho and aner, we have the particle de, meaning and or but. I've translated it as but here, but you could have said and instead. So, and or but, the man is, axios means worthy of or deserving, thanatou in the genitive, because the thing that you're worthy of goes in the genitive next to axios. So, but the man is worthy of death. Then we've got this Greek equivalent of the semicolon or colon, but as I've said before, I believe, it's sometimes best to actually render it as a comma in English. So that's why I put it as a comma here. So we've got, but the man is worthy of death, poneius gar estin. Gar means for in the sense of because, for estin, he is, poneius, a murderer. So poneius there is the complement of the verb to be. And we understand the subject from the previous clause, namely ho aner. That de could have been elided there. However, elision does not always happen in Greek. Number 6 is ar iatros e. You should have translated this one as, are you a doctor? This literally says, is it the case that you are a doctor? But we would say, are you a doctor? Number 7 is stratiotes eimi. You should have translated this one as, I am a soldier. We have I am and the word soldier in the nominative singular. Soldier, stratiotes, is the complement of the verb to be here. Number 8 is hodoulos kakos. You should have translated this one as, the slave is bad. Here, the verb to be has been omitted. We had to supply or understand, that is, put in the verb esti, meaning is. So we translated it as, the slave is bad. Okay, let's now go on to exercise 2. For the first time in my course, I'm presenting you with an English to Greek exercise. Here are 6 English sentences for you to have a go at translating into ancient Greek. All of them use the verb to be in the present tense, and so both the subject of the verb to be and its complement need to go in the nominative case. If you've learned the vocab from my course so far, you will know the words in this exercise in Greek. However, if you have got the Pocket Oxford Classical Greek Dictionary, then that does have an English to Greek vocabulary as well, which may help with some of these words. Anyway, please do pause the video and have a go at translating these sentences into ancient Greek. Okay, let's now go through the answers. Number 1 is, the street is long. In ancient Greek, you could say that as hodos esti makra. The reason you could say it that way is because hodos is the street in the nominative singular. And if you didn't know, hodos is a 2A noun, and in particular it's one of the few feminine 2A nouns. So that's why we had the feminine nominative singular definite article before it. So that's the street, and it needs to be in the nominative because it's the subject of the verb to be. For is, we would say esti. And to say long, we know the adjective long is makros, but here we need it in the feminine nominative singular to agree with hodos, which is feminine nominative singular. And so we would say makra. In case you're wondering why it's not makra, that's because Two 1-2 adjectives with stems ending in epsilon, iota, or rho use a long alpha in the place of eta. So in the feminine singular forms, instead of using eta, those adjectives, the ones with stems ending in epsilon, iota, or rho, use alpha, in particular a long alpha. Now you could have had this as hodos makra estin. You could have put the verb to be at the end and it would still be correct. Number 2 is the men are foreigners. In Greek, you could say this as hoi andres eisi xenoi or hoi anthropoi eisi xenoi. You could say either of these because the term men could either be gender specific, in which case it would be andres, or if you just mean people, then you would say anthropoi instead. Either way, the men went in the nominative plural, then we had eisi, the verb they are, and then we had xenoi, also in the nominative plural, since this is the complement of the verb to be, so it needs to be in the nominative as well. Number 3 is there is a trireme in the harbour. You should have said this in Greek as esti triares en doi limeni. Esti is going at the start here because it's meaning there is. And then we have triares in the nominative singular, since it's the subject of the verb to be. And then we have the prepositional phrase, in the harbour. En means in, and it governs the dative case. Limen is a 3A noun. It's a masculine 3A noun in particular, and here it's in the dative. Number 4 is she is a prophet. In Greek, this would be mantis estin. Here we just have estin, which is he, she, or it is, and mantis, which is the word for prophet, in the nominative singular. Number 5 is the man is a good teacher. Here, you could have said ho aner esti didaskalos agathos. Although, as before, if you interpreted the word man here as meaning person, then you could have said anthropos instead of aner. But in the translation on the screen, I used aner, meaning the man, in the sense of the male, is a good teacher. The man's in the nominative singular, esti means is, and then agathos means good, and didaskalos means teacher. These two are agreeing with each other because they're both masculine nominative singular. And just to be clear, agathos is masculine nominative singular because the noun it's describing, didaskalos, is masculine nominative singular. And the reason they're nominative is because they're the complement of the verb to be. They're the thing that's following the word is. So, the man is a good teacher. Number 6 was we are poets. This would just be two words in Greek, poietai esmen. Esmen means we are, and poietai is poietes, the word for poet, in the nominative plural. Okay, that brings us to a summary of our learning for lesson 38. In today's lesson, we've learned that the verb to be is irregular in Greek, as it is in many languages, and we've learned the present indicative conjugation of the verb to be in Greek. We know it goes eİmι, estin, esmen, este, eisin. And I think you should commit that to memory now, if you can. Note it down and try to learn it by heart. Thirdly, we've also learned about the different uses of the verb to be in ancient Greek. We've learned that it can be used with nouns, adjectives, nouns and adjectives together, or to mean there is or there are. And we've learned that the thing that follows the verb to be, whether it's a noun, adjective, or noun and adjective, is called the complement, and it goes in the nominative case. And the subject also, as usual, goes in the nominative case. And we've also learned that when you say there is or there are, the thing that comes after the verb to be there in English is actually the subject rather than the complement. Otherwise, though, the thing that follows the verb to be in English is the complement, and it goes in the nominative like the subject. In addition, we've learned that the verb to be is sometimes omitted in Greek. Estin and esin are left out particularly frequently. Furthermore, we've learned two new adjectives, agathos, meaning good, and axios, meaning worthy of or deserving, with the thing that one is worthy of going in the genitive next to the adjective. And we also learned a new adverb. We learned the adverb eïu. We saw it with the verb poieor in our sentences. Eïu means well, and it gives us words in English that have EU at the start. Not all words in English that have EU at the start, but some of them that have EU at the start. For example, euthanasia. Euthanasia, etymologically, is a good death. It comes from eïu, meaning well, and thanatos, meaning death. Speaking of death, we also met the Greek noun for death, namely thanatos. Let me now say thank you very much for watching the video. If you found it useful, please do click the like button, and please subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this. Please leave a comment if you have any feedback at all on the video, or any questions at all. But for now, I have put an ancient Greek frog. Well, I said he's ancient Greek. It's not actually clear that he's in ancient Greece here. We can imagine that he's in ancient Greece. In any case, there's a frog on the screen, okay? And we could caption this image of this lovely frog as follows. Esti batrachos endei numpaiai, ho batrachos esti chloros. Meaning, there is a frog on the lily. The frog is green. Chloros means green, and it gives us words like chlorine and chloroplast and chlorophyll. And in this caption we saw two different uses of the verb to be. Here it was meaning there is, and here it was meaning he is, with the frog as the subject, and with an adjective as its complement. So we saw two different uses of the verb to be there. Anyway, I hope that you've enjoyed the lesson, and I shall see you again next time.